The night was cold, and the wind howled like a wounded animal. The streets were empty, except for a lone figure walking under the dim glow of the streetlights. He carried a small bundle in his arms, a child, no older than 5, wrapped in a thin blanket. Her face was pale, her eyes closed as she slept, unaware of what was about to happen. The man's hands trembled as he held her. His heart felt like it was being torn in two. He stopped in front of a tall, gray building with a sign that read, Hope Orphanage. His breath came in short, ragged gasps, and his eyes were red from crying. He looked down at the child, his daughter, and for a moment, he hesitated. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I can't do this anymore. I can't take care of you. Not after what happened to your mother." The memory of his wife's death flashed in his mind, her smile, her laughter, and then the accident that took her away. He had tried to be strong, to raise their daughter alone, but the pain was too much. Every time he looked at the girl, he saw her mother. It was a constant reminder of what he had lost. He kissed her forehead gently, tears streaming down his face. "I love you," he said, though he knew she couldn't hear him. "But this is the only way." With a heavy heart, he placed her on the steps of the orphanage. He rang the doorbell, then turned and walked away, his footsteps echoing in the silent night. He didn't look back. He couldn't. If he did, he might change his mind. Inside the orphanage, a light flickered on. The door creaked open, and a woman stepped out, her eyes widening as she saw the child. She picked her up, looking around for the person who had left her there, but the man was already gone. As the woman carried the girl inside, a shadow moved in the alley across the street. A figure stood there, watching silently. Whoever it was, they had seen everything. But they didn't intervene. They simply stood there, their face hidden in the darkness, before disappearing into the night. Life hadn't always been this way. There was a time when the widower was happy, truly happy. He had a loving wife, a beautiful daughter, and a home filled with laughter. But all of that changed on a rainy evening 7 years ago. He remembered it like it was yesterday. His wife had gone out to run an errand. She promised she'd be back soon, but she never returned. A truck had lost control on the wet road, crashing into her car. She died instantly. The news shattered him. He couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The grief was like a heavy stone pressing down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. His daughter, just a baby at the time, became his only reason to keep going. But as the years passed, the pain only grew worse. Every time he looked at her, he saw his wife. Her smile, her eyes, her laughter, it was all there, in their daughter. And it hurt. It hurt so much. He tried to be strong for her. He really did. But the weight of his grief was too much to bear. He started drinking, hoping it would numb the pain. It didn't. It only made things worse. He lost his job, his friends, and eventually, his will to live. One night, as he sat alone in the dark, a knock came at the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, he found a man standing there, dressed in a sleek black suit. The man had an air of authority, his eyes sharp and calculating. "I'm sorry to disturb you," the man said, his voice calm and steady. "But I believe we can help you." The widower frowned. "Help me? How?" The man stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. He looked around the messy, dimly lit room, his expression unreadable. "We know about your loss," he said. "And we know how much it's affecting you. But what if I told you there's a way to erase that pain? To start over?" The widower stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, sleek device. It looked like a futuristic pen, glowing faintly with a blue light. "This," he said, "is a memory modulator. It can alter your memories, remove the ones that cause you pain. Imagine living without the weight of your grief. Imagine being free. The widower's heart raced. It sounded too good to be true. But the thought of escaping the pain, even for a moment, was tempting. "What's the catch?" he asked. The man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "There's no catch. We're simply offering you a chance to start over. All we ask is that you come with us. Let us help you." The widower hesitated. He looked at the device, then at the man. His mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Could he really do this? Could he really erase the memories of his wife, of their life together? And what about his daughter? Would he forget her too? Before he could answer, the man placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to decide now," he said. "Take some time to think about it. But remember, this could be your only chance to find peace." With that, the man left, leaving the widower alone with his thoughts. For days, he couldn't stop thinking about the offer. The idea of escaping his pain was too tempting to ignore. But deep down, he knew there was something wrong. Something he couldn't quite put his finger on. In the end, his desperation won. He called the number the man had left him and agreed to meet. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he didn't care. All he wanted was to stop hurting. Little did he know, his decision would change everything. Life at the orphanage was lonely. The girl, now 7 years old, had been there for 2 years, but it still didn't feel like home. The other children were kind, but they didn't understand her. How could they? They hadn't lost everything like she had. She didn't remember much about her father. Just fragments, a deep voice, a warm hand holding hers, and then, nothing. The night he left her at the orphanage was a blur. She had been too young to understand what was happening. All she knew was that one day, he was gone, and she was alone. The caretakers at the orphanage were nice, but they were busy. They didn't have time to answer her questions about her father or her mother. Whenever she asked, they would give her a sad smile and change the subject. It made her feel like there was something they weren't telling her. But the girl was determined. She had a locket, a small, silver locket that she wore around her neck. Inside was a picture of her parents. She didn't remember where it came from, but she treasured it. It was the only connection she had to the life she had lost. At night, when the other children were asleep, she would lie in her bed and stare at the locket. She would imagine her parents' faces, trying to remember their voices, their smiles. But no matter how hard she tried, the memories slipped away like sand through her fingers. One night, something strange happened. She was lying in bed, clutching the locket, when she heard a soft humming sound. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it was there. She sat up, her heart pounding. The sound seemed to be coming from the window. She crept out of bed and tiptoed to the window. The moon was full, casting a pale light over the orphanage grounds. She peered outside, but there was nothing there. Just the empty courtyard and the tall trees swaying in the wind. But then she saw it, a flicker of light, like a tiny star, floating in the air. It moved slowly, drifting toward the window. She held her breath as it came closer, her eyes wide with wonder. When it reached the window, it stopped, hovering just outside the glass. For a moment, she thought it was a firefly. But it was too bright, too steady. It pulsed gently, as if it were alive. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and touched the glass. The light seemed to respond, glowing brighter for a moment before fading away. The girl stood there for a long time, staring at the spot where the light had been. She didn't know what it was, but it felt important. Like it was trying to tell her something. The next morning, she told one of the caretakers about the light. The woman listened patiently, but her expression was skeptical. It was probably just a dream, she said. Or maybe a reflection from the moon. But the girl knew it wasn't a dream. She had seen it. She had felt it. And she was determined to find out what it meant. Over the next few weeks, strange things kept happening. She would hear the humming sound again, always at night. Sometimes, she would see the light, floating just out of reach. And once, she found a strange symbol scratched into the wall of her room, a circle with a line through it, like a crossed-out sun. She didn't know what it all meant, but she felt like it was connected to her parents. Maybe it was a sign. Maybe they were trying to reach her. One day, while playing in the courtyard, she found something hidden under a loose stone. It was a small, metal object, like a key but with strange markings on it. She didn't know what it was for, but she kept it, hiding it under her pillow. That night, she made a decision. She didn't know where she would go or how she would get there, but she knew she couldn't stay at the orphanage forever. She had to find her father. She had to know why he left her. And she had to find out the truth about her mother. With the locket around her neck and the strange key in her pocket, she began to plan her escape. The facility was unlike anything the widower had ever seen. It was a massive, futuristic building hidden deep in the mountains, surrounded by high walls and guarded by men in black uniforms. When he arrived, he was led through a series of sterile, white hallways, each one more intimidating than the last. The man in the black suit, the one who had approached him at his home, walked beside him, explaining the process in a calm, reassuring voice. "This won't take long," he said. "You'll feel a little disoriented at first, but that's normal. Once the procedure is complete, you'll feel free." The widower nodded, but his heart was racing. He didn't know what he was getting into, but he was too desperate to back out now. He had signed the contract, agreeing to the terms without fully understanding them. All he knew was that he couldn't keep living the way he was. He needed a way out. They reached a large room filled with strange machines and glowing screens. In the center of the room was a chair, like something out of a sci-fi movie. It was sleek and metallic, with wires and tubes connected to it. The man in the black suit gestured for him to sit down. "This is where it begins," he said. "Once we start, there's no turning back. Are you ready?" The widower hesitated. For a moment, he thought about his daughter. He wondered if she was okay, if she missed him. But then the memory of his wife's death flashed in his mind, and the pain came rushing back. He clenched his fists and nodded. "I'm ready." The man smiled and stepped back. A woman in a white lab coat approached, her face expressionless. She attached electrodes to his temples and placed a strange helmet-like device on his head. "This will help us access your memories," she explained. "It won't hurt, but you might feel strange." The widower closed his eyes as the machine hummed to life. At first, there was nothing. Just a faint buzzing in his ears. But then, images began to flood his mind, memories of his wife, his daughter, their life together. He saw her smile, heard her laughter, felt her hand in his. It was like reliving the happiest moments of his life. But then, something changed. The images began to distort, twisting and fading like smoke. He tried to hold on to them, but they slipped away, one by one. The pain, the grief, the guilt, it all began to fade too, replaced by a strange, empty calm. When he opened his eyes, the room was silent. The man in the black suit was standing over him, a satisfied smile on his face. "How do you feel?" he asked. The widower blinked, trying to process what had just happened. He felt different. Lighter, as if a weight had been lifted from his chest. But there was something else too, a hollow feeling, like something important was missing. "I feel fine," he said slowly. "But I can't remember everything." The man nodded. "That's normal. The procedure targets specific memories, the ones that cause you pain. The rest will come back in time." The widower frowned. He couldn't remember his wife's face, or the sound of her voice. He couldn't even remember why he had come here in the first place. But he didn't feel sad about it. In fact, he didn't feel much of anything. The man in the black suit handed him a folder. "This contains your new assignment," he said. "You'll be working with us now. Consider it a fresh start." The widower took the folder, his mind still foggy. He didn't know what he was agreeing to, but he didn't care. All he knew was that he didn't want to go back to the life he had before. As he was led out of the room, he passed a large window overlooking another part of the facility. Through the glass, he saw rows of people sitting in chairs, just like the one he had been in. Their faces were blank, their eyes empty. For a moment, he felt a flicker of unease, but it was gone as quickly as it came. He didn't know it yet, but he had just become part of something much bigger, and much darker, than he could have imagined. The girl had always been curious. Even as a child, she asked questions no one could answer. Now, at 9 years old, she was more determined than ever to find the truth. She didn't know where to start, but she had one clue: the locket around her neck and the strange key she had found under the stone. One night, when the orphanage was quiet and the moon hung high in the sky, she packed a small bag with the few things she owned: a change of clothes, a piece of bread, and the key. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay here any longer. She had to find her father. She crept out of her room, her heart pounding. The hallway was dark, but she knew the way. She had practiced this in her mind 100 times. She slipped past the caretaker's office, holding her breath as she tiptoed down the stairs. When she reached the front door, she paused, listening for any sounds. All was quiet. She turned the knob slowly, wincing as it creaked. The cool night air hit her face as she stepped outside. For a moment, she hesitated. The world outside the orphanage was big and scary, and she was just a little girl. But then she thought of her father, of the life they had lost, and she squared her shoulders. She could do this. The streets were empty at this hour, lit only by the pale glow of the streetlights. She walked quickly, her small feet barely making a sound on the pavement. She didn't know where she was going, but she followed the strange humming sound she had heard so many times before. It was faint, but it was there, guiding her like a beacon. After walking for what felt like hours, she reached a part of the city she had never seen before. The buildings were taller here, their windows dark and lifeless. The streets were narrow and winding, like a maze. She felt a flicker of fear but pushed it down. She had come too far to turn back now. As she turned a corner, she saw something that made her stop in her tracks. On the wall of a building was the same symbol she had seen scratched into her room at the orphanage, a circle with a line through it, like a crossed-out sun. Her heart raced as she approached it. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew it was important. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the key. It felt warm in her hand, as if it were alive. She held it up to the symbol, wondering if there was a connection. As she did, the humming sound grew louder, vibrating in her ears. She looked around, but there was no one there. Then she saw it, a small, hidden door in the wall, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. Her hands trembled as she inserted the key into the lock. It fit perfectly. With a soft click, the door swung open, revealing a dark staircase leading down. For a moment, she hesitated. What if this was a mistake? What if she was walking into danger? But then she thought of her father, of the life they had lost, and she knew she had to keep going. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was cool and damp, and the walls were lined with strange symbols and markings. The humming sound was louder now, echoing in the narrow space. She followed it, her heart pounding with every step. At the bottom of the stairs, she found herself in a large, dimly lit room. The walls were covered in screens and machines, their lights blinking in the darkness. In the center of the room was a chair, just like the one in her dreams. and sitting in the chair was a man. He looked up as she entered, his eyes wide with surprise. For a moment, they just stared at each other, neither of them speaking. Then the man stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. The girl took a step forward, her heart racing. She didn't know how to answer. All she knew was that this man felt familiar. Like someone she had been searching for her whole life. I'm your daughter," she said softly. The man's face changed, his expression shifting from confusion to something else, something like recognition. He took a step toward her, his hand reaching out as if to touch her. But before he could, the room was flooded with light, and a voice boomed from the shadows. Well, the voice said. "What do we have here?" The girl turned, her heart pounding. Standing in the doorway was the man in the black suit, his eyes cold and calculating. Behind him were several guards, their faces hidden behind masks. The man smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "You've come a long way, little one," he said. "But I'm afraid this is where your journey ends." The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the machines. The girl stood frozen, her eyes darting between the man in the black suit and the guards behind him. Her heart pounded in her chest, but she refused to show her fear. She had come too far to give up now. The man in the black suit stepped forward, his cold eyes fixed on her. "You're a clever little girl," he said, his voice smooth but menacing. "But you shouldn't have come here. This is no place for children." The girl clenched her fists, her small frame trembling but her voice steady. "I'm not leaving without my father." The man glanced at the widower, who was still standing by the chair, his face a mask of confusion. "Your father?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "Oh, you mean him. I'm afraid he doesn't remember you." "Not anymore." The girl's heart sank, but she didn't back down. "You're lying," she said. "He's my father, and I'm taking him home." The man chuckled, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. "Brave words," he said. "But you don't understand what's at stake here. This facility, these experiments, they're bigger than you, bigger than him. You can't just walk in here and expect to leave." The girl took a step back, her mind racing. She didn't know what to do, but she knew she couldn't give up. She looked at her father, hoping to see some sign of recognition in his eyes. But he just stared at her, his expression blank. Then, something unexpected happened. The widower's face twitched, as if he were struggling to remember something. He looked at the girl, his brow furrowing. You look familiar," he said slowly. "Do I know you?" The girl's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she said softly. "I'm your daughter. You left me at the orphanage, but I never forgot you. I came to find you." The man in the black suit stepped between them, his smile fading. "Enough of this," he said sharply. "Guards, take her." The guards moved forward, their heavy boots echoing on the floor. The girl backed away, her heart racing. She didn't know what to do, but she wasn't going to let them take her without a fight. Just as the guards reached her, a voice rang out from the shadows. "Stop." Everyone turned to see a woman in a white lab coat stepping into the light. She had short, dark hair and a determined look in her eyes. The man in the black suit frowned. "What are you doing here?" he demanded. The woman ignored him and walked over to the girl, kneeling down to her level. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. The girl nodded, though her hands were still shaking. "Who are you?" she asked. "My name is Dr. Elena," the woman said. "I work here, but I don't agree with what they're doing. I've been trying to stop them, but I couldn't do it alone." She glanced at the widower, then back at the girl. "You're his daughter, aren't you?" The girl nodded again. "Yes. I came to find him." Dr. Elena smiled, though her eyes were sad. "You're very brave," she said. "But this place is dangerous. You shouldn't have come here." The man in the black suit stepped forward, his face dark with anger. "This is none of your concern, Elena," he said. "Step aside, or you'll regret it." Dr. Elena stood, her expression hardening. "No," she said firmly. "I won't let you hurt her. Or him." She turned to the widower, who was still standing by the chair, looking lost. "Do you remember anything?" she asked him. "Anything at all?" The widower frowned, his hand going to his head. I don't know," he said. "There's something I can't quite remember." Dr. Elena nodded. "That's because they erased your memories," she said. "But they didn't do a perfect job. Somewhere, deep down, you still remember her. You just have to fight for it." The man in the black suit laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. "You're wasting your time," he said. "The procedure is irreversible. He'll never remember her." But the widower's face was changing. His eyes were narrowing, his hands clenching into fists. He looked at the girl, really looked at her, and something flickered in his eyes. You're my daughter," he said slowly. I left you. I'm so sorry." The girl's heart leapt. "You remember me?" The widower nodded, tears filling his eyes. "I remember," he said. "I remember everything." The man in the black suit's smile vanished. "This is impossible," he said. "Guards, take them both." The guards moved forward, but Dr. Elena stepped in front of the girl and her father. "You'll have to go through me first," she said. For a moment, no one moved. Then the widower stepped forward, his face set with determination. "You're not taking her," he said. "Not again." The man in the black suit sneered. "You think you can stop us?" he said. "You're nothing without us." But the widower didn't back down. He looked at the girl, then at Dr. Elena. "We're getting out of here," he said. "All of us." The room was tense, the air thick with anticipation. The man in the black suit glared at the widower, his cold eyes narrowing. "You think you can just walk out of here?" he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You belong to us now. You always will." The widower didn't flinch. He stood tall, his eyes locked on the man who had taken so much from him. "I don't belong to anyone," he said firmly. "Not anymore." The man in the black suit smirked and snapped his fingers. The guards moved forward, their heavy boots echoing on the floor. Dr. Elena stepped in front of the girl, shielding her with her body. "Stay behind me," she whispered. The widower clenched his fists, his mind racing. He didn't know how they were going to get out of this, but he knew they had to try. He glanced at his daughter, her small face filled with fear but also determination. She had come all this way to find him. He couldn't let her down now. As the guards closed in, the widower acted on instinct. He grabbed a nearby metal rod from one of the machines and swung it at the nearest guard. The guard dodged, but the distraction gave Dr. Elena enough time to grab the girl's hand and pull her toward the door. "Run," the widower shouted, swinging the rod again to keep the guards at bay. Dr. Elena and the girl sprinted down the hallway, their footsteps echoing in the narrow space. Behind them, the widower fought off the guards, his movements fueled by desperation. He didn't know how long he could hold them off, but he didn't care. All that mattered was getting his daughter to safety. The man in the black suit watched from the doorway, his expression dark. "You're only making this harder on yourself," he called after them. "You can't escape. We'll find you." The widower didn't respond. He swung the rod one last time, knocking a guard to the ground, then turned and ran after Dr. Elena and the girl. His heart pounded as he caught up to them, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "This way," Dr. Elena said, leading them down a narrow staircase. "There's an exit at the bottom." The girl clung to her father's hand as they ran, her small legs struggling to keep up. "Are we going to make it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We're going to try," the widower said, squeezing her hand. "I'm not losing you again." They reached the bottom of the staircase and found themselves in a dimly lit corridor. At the end was a heavy metal door. Dr. Elena ran to it and began typing a code into the keypad. "This should lead us outside," she said. "But we have to hurry." The sound of footsteps echoed behind them. The guards were coming. "Hurry," the widower urged, his eyes darting back to the staircase. Dr. Elena's fingers flew over the keypad. "Almost, got it," she said as the door clicked open. Cold night air rushed in, a welcome relief after the stifling heat of the facility. They burst outside, the moonlight casting a pale glow over the forest that surrounded the facility. The sound of alarms blared behind them, and the guards' shouts grew louder. "This way," Dr. Elena said, leading them into the trees. "If we can make it to the road, we can find help." The girl stumbled as they ran, her small legs struggling to keep up. The widower scooped her up without breaking stride, holding her close as they plunged deeper into the forest. His arms ached, but he didn't care. He would carry her as far as he had to. Behind them, the guards were gaining ground. The sound of their footsteps and shouted orders grew louder, echoing through the trees. The widower's heart raced as he pushed himself to run faster, his lungs burning. Just when it seemed like they might be caught, Dr. Elena pointed ahead. "There," she said. "The road." Through the trees, they could see the faint glow of headlights. A car was coming. "We have to flag it down," Dr. Elena said, waving her arms as they reached the edge of the forest. The widower set the girl down and joined her, shouting and waving at the approaching car. For a moment, it seemed like the driver wouldn't stop. But then the car slowed, pulling over to the side of the road. The window rolled down, and a man's face appeared. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice filled with concern. "We need help," Dr. Elena said quickly. "Please, we're in danger." The man hesitated, then nodded. "Get in." They scrambled into the car, the widower holding the girl tightly as Dr. Elena climbed into the front seat. The man stepped on the gas, and the car sped away, leaving the guards and the facility behind. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the girl's quiet sobs as she clung to her father. "Are you okay?" the widower asked, his voice soft. The girl nodded, her face buried in his chest. "I'm just glad we're together," she said. The widower held her tighter, his heart swelling with emotion. He had spent so long running from his pain, but now he realized that the only way to heal was to face it. And he would do whatever it took to protect his daughter. Dr. Elena turned to look at them, her expression a mix of relief and worry. "We're not out of danger yet," she said. "They'll come after us. We need to disappear." The widower nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Then we'll disappear," he said. "But we'll do it together." The car sped down the dark, winding road, putting as much distance as possible between them and the facility. The widower held his daughter close, his heart still racing from their narrow escape. Dr. Elena sat in the front seat, her eyes scanning the road ahead. The driver, a kind stranger who had stopped to help, glanced at them in the rearview mirror. "Where are you headed?" he asked. "Anywhere but here," Dr. Elena replied. "Just keep driving." The widower looked down at his daughter, who was curled up against him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "We're safe now," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. The man in the black suit and his organization were powerful. They wouldn't give up so easily. As if on cue, the sound of sirens echoed in the distance. Dr. Elena turned to look out the back window, her face pale. "They're coming," she said. "We need to get off the main road." The driver nodded and turned onto a narrow dirt path that led into the forest. The car bounced over the uneven ground, but they didn't stop. The sirens grew louder, and soon the flashing lights of several vehicles appeared behind them. "They're gaining on us," the widower said, his voice tight with panic. Dr. Elena clenched her fists, her mind racing. "We can't let them catch us," she said. "If they do, it's over." The girl looked up at her father, her eyes wide with fear. "What are we going to do?" The widower hesitated, then made a decision. "Stop the car," he said. The driver glanced at him in surprise. "What? Are you crazy? They'll catch us." "Just stop the car," the widower repeated, his voice firm. "I'll distract them. You take my daughter and Dr. Elena and get out of here." "No," the girl cried, clinging to him. "I'm not leaving you." The widower cupped her face in his hands, his eyes filled with love and determination. "You have to," he said softly. "I can't lose you again. I'll hold them off as long as I can. Just promise me you'll stay safe." Tears streamed down the girl's face, but she nodded. "I promise." The driver pulled the car to a stop, and the widower climbed out, his heart heavy but his resolve unshaken. Dr. Elena hesitated, then handed him a small device. "This is a memory modulator," she said. "It's the same technology they used on you. If you can get close enough to the man in the black suit, you can use it to erase his memories of us. It might buy us some time." The widower took the device, his jaw set. "Thank you," he said. "Now go. Hurry." Dr. Elena and the girl climbed into the front seat, and the driver sped off, leaving the widower alone in the dark forest. He turned to face the approaching vehicles, his heart pounding but his mind clear. He had spent so long running from his pain, but now he was ready to face it, and to fight for what mattered most. The vehicle screeched to a halt, and the man in the black suit stepped out, his cold eyes scanning the area. "Where are they?" he demanded. The widower stepped forward, the memory modulator hidden in his hand. "They're gone," he said. "You'll never find them." The man in the black suit smirked. "You really think you can stop us?" he said. "You're just one man." The widower didn't respond. He lunged forward, catching the man off guard. They struggled, the memory modulator clutched tightly in the widower's hand. With a final, desperate effort, he pressed the device to the man's temple and activated it. The man in the black suit froze, his eyes going blank. He stumbled back, his hands going to his head. What did you do?" he stammered, his voice filled with confusion. The widower didn't wait to see the full effects. He turned and ran, disappearing into the forest as the guards scrambled to help their leader. He didn't know how much time he had bought, but he hoped it was enough. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena and the girl reached a small town, where they found a police station. They burst inside, their faces filled with urgency. "We need help," Dr. Elena said. "There's a dangerous organization after us. You have to stop them." The police officers sprang into action, calling for backup and heading out to intercept the organization's vehicles. Within hours, the facility was raided, and the man in the black suit was arrested, his memories of the widower and his daughter erased. As dawn broke, the widower emerged from the forest, his body bruised and exhausted but his spirit unbroken. He found Dr. Elena and his daughter waiting for him, their faces filled with relief. "You did it," Dr. Elena said, her voice filled with admiration. "You stopped them." The widower knelt down and pulled his daughter into a tight embrace. "We did it," he said. "Together." The sun rose over the small town, casting a warm golden light over the streets. The widower stood with his daughter and Dr. Elena outside the police station, watching as the officers led the man in the black suit and his guards away in handcuffs. The facility had been shut down, and the experiments exposed to the world. It was over. The widower looked down at his daughter, who was holding his hand tightly. Her face was still pale, and her eyes were tired, but there was a spark of hope in them that hadn't been there before. He knelt down to her level, his heart swelling with love. "We're safe now," he said softly. "No one's going to hurt us anymore." The girl nodded, her small hand gripping his. "Are we going home?" she asked. The widower hesitated. He didn't have a home anymore, not really. The life they had known was gone, destroyed by grief and desperation. But as he looked at his daughter, he realized that home wasn't a place. It was the people you loved. And as long as they were together, they could build a new life. "Yes," he said, smiling. "We're going home." Dr. Elena stepped forward, her expression thoughtful. "What will you do now?" she asked. The widower stood, his hand still holding his daughter's. "I don't know," he admitted. "But I know I'm not running anymore. I'm going to face whatever comes, one day at a time." Dr. Elena nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "That's all any of us can do," she said. "If you ever need help, you know where to find me." The widower thanked her, his gratitude evident in his eyes. Dr. Elena had risked everything to help them, and he would never forget that. As she walked away, he turned back to his daughter, his heart full of determination. "Let's start over," he said. "Just you and me. We'll find a new place to live, make new memories. And this time, I'll never let you go." The girl smiled, her eyes shining with tears. "I love you, Dad," she said. The widower's heart swelled with emotion. He had spent so long running from his pain, but now he realized that the only way to heal was to face it, and to cherish the love that remained. He pulled his daughter into a tight embrace, holding her as if he would never let go. "I love you too," he whispered. "More than anything." Epilogue, a lesson in love and resilience. Years later, the widower and his daughter stood at the edge of a quiet lake, the sun setting in a blaze of colors. They had built a new life together, one filled with love, laughter, and hope. The pain of the past was still there, but it no longer defined them. They had faced their darkest moments and come out stronger on the other side. The girl, now a teenager, looked up at her father with a smile. "Do you ever think about what happened?" she asked. The widower nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "Every day," he said. "But not with regret. What happened taught me something important, that no matter how dark things seem, there's always hope. And as long as we have each other, we can get through anything." The girl nodded, her smile widening. "I'm glad we're together," she said. The widower put an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Me too," he said. "Me too." As they stood there, watching the sun dip below the horizon, they knew that their journey wasn't just about escaping the past. It was about embracing the future, and the love that had carried them through.